What's going on, Aces? Welcome back to the channel. Hope that everybody is having a wonderful Thursday. So let's go ahead and get into this next episode of Next Gen NYC. Listen, the episode is titled Apology Not Included, and it's referring to Charlie, who is somebody that has said he does not believe his apology that he gave to Riley, mimicking her and making her out to be a caricature of a Black woman. We find out a little bit deeper into why Charlie is the way that he is later on in the episode. But the opening credits just basically shows, each of the cast members doing their things, right, separately. So Brooks is with his parents in like this sensory tank. Gia is filming a podcast with her mom, Teresa Giudice. We have Riley on the turntables. We have Charlie, who says that he doesn't want to be perceived to be a bum, even though he has, joints and all kind of stuff just pretty much everywhere. His roommate is, of course, working out, right, doing his thing, keeping his body right and tight for his OnlyFans. So just everybody is off, kind of doing their own thing. Um, Brooks, he's in his confessional saying that he most kids leave the nest, but he still feels pretty close to both of his parents. They talk about Charlie and when his dad talked to Charlie, and he said that he likes Charlie's authenticity. And while we get it, right, Charlie is authentic, we do see throughout this episode that Charlie, I can't say he is the way he is. We can see the origins of his personality, right? His dad is not very kind, his mom is negligent. But I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of people have parents that are unkind or negligent, or they don't necessarily even have parents at all, right? And at some point, like Riley says later on in the episode, you really do have to choose um, how you live your life. It's going to take work. It's going to take work. If that foundation is not there, it's tough, but it's not impossible. So speaking of, right, the opening, the next scene is Charlie meeting up with his dad. Anwar, War is in his name because his his dad is. Well, I promise you, every time he sees Charlie, it's almost like he declares war on his own son. And again, a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but I know some people, and even I've had experiences where it's like your parent is your first bully, unfortunately. And so online, when I say a lot of people, I'm talking about a lot of people that I've seen on social media share their experiences about having parents that are jealous of them, or that are just really projecting their own unhealed trauma onto them. And it's unfortunate, but it's like you either choose to go down that same path, or you choose to break that generational curse and choose a different path forward. Ultimately, the great thing about us having free will is we can make that choice. But there are scenes where they refer back to when Charlie was meeting with his mom Liz and her boyfriend, and his mom just chose the art world uh, over her son, essentially herself, right? Charlie has two selfish parents. He's, his dad is hugging his girlfriend Talia. He's like, when are you going to get Talia in your life? Like, I feel bad for you and all this. And here's the gag. If Charlie was to look at his dad dead in his eye and say, his dad could be, I know he's a multimillionaire at least, but he could very well be a billionaire. If Charlie would have looked that man in the eye and say, you would give up your whole fortune to switch places with me and to turn back the hands of time. That is the one thing that we cannot control. Time moves forward and it moves fast. And I was watching, the Shark Tank multimillionaire Robert. he has a YouTube channel, and I was watching his, and he was talking about how, he even learns himself from Mark Cuban, who I actually like as well. But he was saying that billionaires, most of them, would give away their billions to switch places with someone who is young, right? You can always build another fortune, but you can't turn back the, the hands of time. Um, Charlie's dad, Anwar, and War, like I said, War is a good name for him. He acts the way he does because he's jealous of his son. His son, because when they went to his house, and this is later on in the episode, he says, who looks better, me or Charlie, whatever. Charlie, he shrinks and he minimizes and he deflects and he is deferential to his father because he wants his money. He really wants his love and affection, to be honest. He wants his acceptance. But that man is battling his own demons. And he will never fully embrace Charlie because he views him as a threat. Ask me how I know. But you can tell, right? And so it's unfortunate. Charlie's going to have to learn how to choose himself. And while Charlie is self-centered, he's very emotionally stunted, like his dad. He's trying to mimic his dad to try to gain his acceptance and approval, but he'll never get it because his dad sees him as a threat. It's a sad cycle. But Charlie's eventually going to have to grow up and realize that he can love his father from afar. Like he can forgive him and move forward. But until he does that, he's not going to be able to form healthy relationships with other people. So speaking of, Ava is talking with her dad, Dane Dash. Unfortunately, they're going through their own issues in terms of finance. But the one thing I do like about Dane is that, he's very supportive of his daughter. He champions her career. They're talking about Charlie. And, Dane says, listen, Charlie sounds like he has a pretty bad relationship with women. Does he love his mother? Does he respect his mother? And Ava's like, yeah, I guess. Like, Dane is like, until he can, really embrace, himself and choose himself, and respect himself and his parents for who they are, right? Even if his parents, like I said, his parents seem very emotionally immature and self-centered. It is what it is. You at some point you have to accept people for who they are and love them from afar. You know, you can't allow toxic people to ruin your life because we only have one life to live and it's very short. So I love that he told her, the Dane told Ava that in the car. Moving on, we have Georgia and her boyfriend. And her boyfriend's name is Omar. And, while she is an event planner, he is a restaurateur. He said that he watched Ratatouille when he was young and he loved the little, with the chef and the mouse. So she says that, while he's getting up in the morning at like 5 in the morning, she's just going to bed a few hours earlier. Because, her event planning and party planning is like a third shift type of thing. But hopefully, they can have a long lasting relationship and their love can blossom. So Riley meets up with Ariana and they order Dirty Shirley's. I've never heard of that before. But anyway, so they're talking about, what happened in regards to, you know, Charlie. Did you guys Charlie, he goes on this apology tour and I commend Riley and Ava for wanting to stay friends with Charlie, honestly, because I feel like he's somebody who he has to want to change and he has to want to value being in a relationship with these two women. He doesn't have a high respect for women across the board, right? Like he was disrespectful to Brooks' sister Chloe. We find, he was really aggressive with Ariana. we find out the next week he disrespects Georgia to her face. He's disrespected Riley. He's just disrespectful to women across the board. So for them to even want to continue a relationship with him is commendable. It's admirable, you know. It teeters on that youthful naivete, but that's okay because when you're young, you know what I mean, you have this idealistic view of the world, and that's good. You should, because you should not, because it's like you can't start out in the world, you know, cynical, because you know what I mean. So, um, but anyway, Ariana and Riley are talking about how you know they come from housewives. You know, if they have to shift the wig a little bit, that's okay. They have the mothers who have taught them how to do it, right? And they cut to the housewives. You know, Candy and Kim getting into it. Candy telling you know Kim that she can do what she does best, right? Get up from that table and run. And Sheree Whitfield tugging on Kim's wig and shifting it a bit. So Ariana just lets, you know, Riley know that she has her back. It would have been nice if Ariana and the rest, right, Ava and all these people, Brooks, who, you know, wrote a social media post, that's great. That is very supportive, but it would have been even better if they would have done so in real time. Um, but, you know, hindsight is 2020. So they are supporting her now. So the next scene is Charlie getting ready to go to his barbecue, his dad's barbecue. You know, the shady producers say that he's 45 minutes late. And did anybody else peep that no people of color, no cast members of color were invited to his dad's barbecue? Was I the only one who peeped that? Like, was this the whites only party like in the Hamptons? Y'all remember White Chicks with Sean and Marlon Wayans when they and Terry Crews, and the only thing he was mad at when he found out that Sean and Marlon were men, and he was like, "Did anybody tell y'all this was a whites only party?" He's like, "Negro, please." That's the first thing that I thought of. Um, but yeah, I just thought that that was interesting. But anyway, even before the party, we get to Hudson and Ariana, and they move into a beautiful new apartment. Their original budget was $6,000 a month, but the apartment that they actually got was $10,000 a month. So shout out to Ariana for you know having a boyfriend, which I'm sure they're going to probably blossom into you know fiance and getting married, hopefully. Um, but you know his family, you know he got money, so that's not an issue. But the rest of the cast, you know, they're on their way in the van to to Charlie and his dad's barbecue. Sans the cast members of color, the two black women, because I don't think there aren't any men of color, unless I'm missing something with Brooks or you know Shire, Dylan, or the rest. But Georgia, you know, she talks about how her family background that they started out lower middle class, and then her parents became, you know, lawyers. They graduated from law school. But after 9/11, her dad got major PTSD. And she says that he went off the rails and ended up leaving the family and moving upstate, which is really, you know, that's sad. She said that she started acting out when she was younger and she was put into therapy. You know, she thought saw a therapist on and off until just recently last year. So Charlie says that he also was in therapy trying to learn communication skills with his father and that they will go together. But unfortunately, his dad is not only the parent in that position, but he's also the breadwinner. So, you know, Charlie was in a very vulnerable position, unfortunately. Because most people, when you have money like that, most people are going to tell the person with money what they want to hear. You can see people kind of cower around um, Charlie's dad. Like his girlfriend didn't check him for how disrespectful he was being to his son. Um, Nobody's really going to say anything. Even you know his own kids. Like Charlie's saying, at the end of the day, I just want peace. This quote that he has on the left, he says, I want peace in my life. And a part of me is worried I'm not going to get it until he passes away. I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's like, Charlie, honey, you're going to have to get a job. Like him just waiting on his dad to pass so that he can access his trust fund. I mean, who knows? The first episode, I believe Charlie said that he didn't want to say anything too upsetting, too colorful, because he didn't want to upset his dad to be taken out of the will. Who knows what's going to happen after this season, or even after his dad sees this episode, right? People like that are very fragile and thin-skinned. Bullies are some of the biggest cowards in the world, so he might, you never know. His dad already told him that he was not the favorite child when they were talking about booking the trip to Greece. So when they finally get there, the first thing that his dad says, I mean, Brooks even brings a gift. The dad doesn't say thank you. He just says, who do you guys think is better looking, me or me or Charlie? And I'm just like, dude, like, how insecure can you be? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm only laughing because looking back on it, you know what I mean? Like, it's really unfortunate, but some people like that, I'm telling you, you just have to laugh in their face. Not even in their face, but just laugh at the situation because it's comical. Like, sir, if you're trying to compare yourself to your 30-year-old son, there is no competition. And it's sad that he's trying to do so, And it's even sadder that nobody's going to tell the emperor that he doesn't have on clothes. So, but Brooks says, his dad couldn't be any more different. His dad, Seth, is very, affirming. He's saying how proud he is. But then he's also joking, saying, pull my finger while they're in the confessional. But you can tell that Brooks has a close relationship with his father. He's the very opposite of Anwar. Um, Anwar is just, he's just like getting off on publicly humiliating his son. And it's disgusting. I really would love if Charlie would, you know, get on his own financial feet, his own, 2 feet, but he won't do it. Like I said, part of me feels like he wants to be around his father just for his love and affection, um, but he's not going to get it. You know what I mean? Because his dad is just not that person. You just have to accept some people for who they are. But anyway, so he's asking him about his, life plans, any thoughts, and so Charlie says that he's not talking about it. And it's like, dude, you're 30. You're about to be 30. Like, did he not go to college? Did he not take up a trade? Like, what did he do? I'm sure he probably went to, really good high schools and private schools, and how did his parents? I mean, well, I know his mother was negligent, but how did his father not, you know, try to prepare him for any type of, future? I'm curious. Like, that's horrible. You would think that they would have that conversation before he turned 29 years old. Um, Again, like I said, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. His dad just gives him money to try to keep him out of his life because he doesn't want to deal with him. And he says, that's heartbreaking. He said it makes him sad. It is sad, you know what I mean? Because you could tell that Charlie still craves his father's approval. And Georgia says that he has given up on himself, even if he doesn't consciously realize it. But it's just like, listen, it's a battle, but there is fulfillment in having agency of your own life, you know. So I can't even front. My favorite father on this on this show so far is Dame Dash, because He's over here talking about how he's taught his his kids entrepreneurship. It's it's like, dang, unfortunately, tax records and things are public knowledge. And Ava herself, I believe, has gotten evicted from her $10,000 a month apartment because, unlike, Ariana and Hudson, there is no chicken empire attached to Dame Dash. He was a part of Rockefeller Records, but unfortunately, like I said, Jay Z went the billionaire route, and now, unfortunately, Dame Dash is broke. Um, but they're golfing and they're having a lot of fun on the golf course, um, you know, and it begins to rain, which is hilarious. It's like this sudden downpour. And so, Brooks is yelling for his phone. He's asking his dad to, find the location, find my iPhone. Um, and, um, Ava and her dad are like screaming through the rain and stuff, trying to get back to the job. It's hilarious. I love this show because it's so cute and quirky. Um, and Seth's dad saying he wants to be his friend, his best friend. Like his dad is a hoot. The dads on here, aside from Charlie's dad, I feel like the dads on here, they are a hoot. They are a hoot. So Charlie goes on his, apology tour with Riley and Ava. Like I said, they did not get invited to the cookout. He may have been just embarrassed, after just kind of being disrespectful to them. But he's taken his misogynistic ways from his father, and it's like, at some point, like Riley said, you have to get to a point of maturity and growth and unlearn all the negative and toxic things that were instilled in you as a child. Like it's your responsibility to unlearn and relearn toxicity. That's a part of growth and evolution and maturity. So anyway, you know, Charlie is walking along, side Riley. They're drinking coffees, and he's just saying that, I'm sorry. I never meant to imitate you. I've never meant to, hurt you. And after he said this initially, he went back and told, Georgia and her friend that he didn't really mean the apology. So I wouldn't, if I were Riley, I wouldn't believe him either. I would be cordial just to, go along and get along for the sake of the show to collect that check, put business first, put that bag first. But as far as thinking that, Charlie was a genuine friend, I would not. Um, Same with Ava, right? So he's, walking along talking about how he's so sorry. But then he also says here on the right, he says, Ariana's kind of growing on me. Now, if you guys remember earlier episodes, he was real aggressive toward Ariana. They got into it. And, she said that he was just being a jerk. Even, Hudson, who is real quiet, he's like, you've been a jerk since the day we met you. But, Ava's telling him, like, really, in what way do you have a crush on her? And he's like, oh, I may try to F her low key. Like, and Ava's like, she has a boyfriend, right? Charlie doesn't care. He is so disrespectful. He is so disrespectful. And I get that he had parents who were disrespectful and taught him to be disrespectful. But at what point do you take responsibility for your own actions in your own life? Like you have to. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in the shadow of your parents and give them exactly what they want, that power over you. You can't do that. I mean, you can, it's a choice, but you shouldn't as an adult. So, anyway, Ariana and Hudson, they meet up. They're getting their fashion line together, Adored Angels, and they meet up with a gentleman to discuss the business plan. And he tells them, listen, you guys are very enthusiastic, but there's nothing really like concrete here, as as we're in regards to having an actual business plan. So go back to the drawing board. And lastly, they meet up for Chloe's birthday party, and they're at a bar. And so Ava sits down And I feel like she's in her feelings a little bit that Charlie told her that he has a crush on Ariana. So now she has smoke for Ariana, and she's, pretty much dissing her fashion line. She's like, I never looked at Ariana and thought, that she's giving me fashionista, because she's a model. And Amira's like, that's not real cool, it's shady. And so Brooks, he is a messy queen, okay? So he goes back and tells, Ariana. So Ariana sits down right beside Ava, and she asks her, like, what's going on? Why would you come for my clothing brand and you haven't even seen it? You know? Again, I think that Ava was just jealous at the comment that Charlie made. I feel like they do have an attraction and connection to each other, Ariana, or not Ariana, Ava and Charlie, and maybe they should explore it. But Ava's in her confessional saying that she didn't really mean what she said, and it's just like, girl, yes, you did. You was trying to come for Ariana's clothing line. And so Ariana saying, I'm sorry my parents can't pay for everything because I'm paying their bills. And I'm like, girl, that's a word. Because Kim Zolciak, she's been having people take care of her and pay her bills ever since we met her on Real Housewives of Atlanta with Big Papa. Like, that's crazy, but it's true. Ariana is another person who has parents who aren't necessarily kind, but she's grown past that. So Charlie, you can do it. It's possible. It's not always easy, but it is possible. So I'm glad that she's confronting Ava to her face, and she's like, why are you coming for my clothing brand? You haven't even seen it. So then that's where the episode ends. Nice cliffhanger. Next week we're seeing that Candy and Todd are like $14,000. She's like, that better not be on the card I paid for. I'm like, I know that's right, Candy. And then the next, they're talking about Charlie's trust fund, and Georgia says everybody hates you. He calls her a effing B, and he's like, you wouldn't even be on this show if it wasn't for me. Charlie is the most self-centered, emotionally stunted, immature, misogynistic, grown crybaby, just wannabe daddy's boy, but craving his dad's affection, trying to follow in his footsteps. Um, Brat, trust fund brat that I've ever seen. Please do not let this 30-year-old toddler back on the show next season. You guys, let me know your thoughts. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk with you in the next one. Take care, Aces. Bye.